Our guest this week, the only three-time 50-goal man in Leafs history, former captain Rick Vaive. Joe Tilley Sports, coming up! Welcome to Joe Tilley Sports. We got a great show for you today. Our guest today was born in Ottawa, grew up in Prince Edward Island, a former first-round draft pick, a three-time All-Star right winger, first Maple Leaf to score 50 goals in one season. He did it 3 times. No one else ever has for this club. Still holds the club record with 54 goals in a season, 441 goals, 778 points in 876 NHL games over 13 seasons. He won a bronze medal at the World Juniors, a silver medal at the World Championships, one of only 18 players to wear the C for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Rick Vaive. Rick, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here today, buddy.
Oh, my pleasure, Joe. How are you doing today?
I'm doing awesome. You know, we want to talk, of course, about your recently released book. It's called Catch-22, My Battles in Hockey and Life, the untold story of a Toronto Maple Leafs legend, Rick Vaive, with Scott Morrison. Scott, of course, helped write the book. It's an awesome read. I highly recommend it. Amazing insight. And first of all, though, Rick, I want to tell us about the name Catch-22.
Well, actually, I came up with that. I just thought it was a good title, and I think looking back at the book and going through it, I think I found myself in so many catch-22 situations just in my life and in the NHL, situations where, you know, like Harold Ballard saying, "You're the captain," and me looking at him and thinking, if I don't take it, he's big me, and if I knew I wasn't quite ready for it at 22 years old, but there was many of those moments throughout the book, and I thought that was pardon the pun, a catchy title, and they agreed, and we went with it.
It was good, yeah. Catch-20, number 22. You know, 20 captain when you're 22 years old. There's a lot of catch-22 happening in that career for sure. Okay, so you started your career in Toronto, but not with the Maple Leafs. Tell us about that situation with the Baby Bulls.
Well, that was in Birmingham, and that was my last year junior. The draft was 20 years old at the time, and I was 19, and we had a chance to go to Birmingham. There were 6 of us, and they called us the Baby Bulls, and in the WHA. It was a great year. It was a fantastic growing year, learning how to live on your own and also playing against men. So I thought that was the best thing for my career, was to leave junior and then to go. Everything worked out pretty good during that year, and all us young guys all went in the first round, and it was pretty amazing.
Now the team actually started in Toronto, but moved to Birmingham right off the hop. So you actually never played in Toronto, but you did play for John Brophy a couple of times, and the first time was with Birmingham. And tell it, what was it like playing for Brophy?
Well, I mean, there were some tough times. Brof was a pretty big hard ass, and he pushed us pretty hard. But you know what? He was fair. I loved Brof because all he wanted you to do was give 100% of whatever kind of game you had. And I know there was players that he coached that thought, you know, he wants me to be a goon. He wants me to be a tough guy. That wasn't the case with Brof. He just wanted 100%. And he, being a fellow Maritimer, we got along great. And, well, I shouldn't say always great. There was times where he'd get on me pretty hard, but I appreciated that. I don't think he needed to, because I don't think anybody put any more pressure on me than myself. So I didn't really need his pressure on top of that, but he was going to give it anyway.
You had some good stories in the book about your times in Birmingham, and one of them, playing with Dave Hansen, right? One of the real Hansen
Hmm.
brothers, and tell us about that fight that Dave Hansen had with Bobby Hull.
Yeah, that well, actually, I think that was a year before I got there, and that was when Birmingham had all the tough guys, and they beat the heck out of everybody in the WHA. And then the next year, they were all gone except for Dave, and we got the heck beat out of us. But I think it was a year before that they were playing Winnipeg, and there was a big brawl, and he ended up squaring off with Bobby Hall, and he grabbed him by the hair, and unfortunately, lo and behold, his toupee came off, and it was a little bit embarrassing. But I know Dave explained it pretty good, and he said he was sorry, and everything was okay after that. But it was a little embarrassing.
A little embarrassing for Bobby. Dave a little bit too, I suppose. Now,
Oh,
you
yeah.
had you had a few run-ins in the league yourself, and in the WHA, and you talk about your one particular run-in you had with Gordie Howe. That was an interest. Tell us about that run-in you had with the legend, Mr. Hockey.
Well, it was late in the game, and we were up a goal, and the faceoff was in our end, and Brof used to use me on the right side because I was a right hand shot to draw back draws in our end. So I took the draw. We won it. We cleared it off the glass, and I beat everybody down the ice and got to the puck. And there was no automatic icing back then. So I got it and I circled the net and I turned backwards to try and shoot it in the open net. And lo and behold, I didn't know what happened. I just kind of did a flip in the air, came down, didn't know where the heck I was. I ended up crawling to the bench, both screaming at me to get the heck off the ice so I could put someone else out there because they're going back the other direction. And then I watched the tape the next day, and there's Gordy. He's skating back on the back check. And then all of a sudden, I see this, and his elbow's up, caught me right in the back of the head. And like I said, in the air, fell, and like I had to crawl to the bench out woozy.
So it was also in the WHA days, I believe, when you got your nickname Squid. Tell us how that came about.
Well, and Mr. Brophy plays into this again, and him being our coach, we were doing power play at one end, and then everybody was doing some different drills at the other end, and he was standing at the blue line and he was screaming squid, and of course my nickname at the time was Spud, being from PEI and all. And
Right.
Craig Hartsburg said to him, "Who are you calling?" And he said, "Vive." He said, "Oh, you mean Spud?" And Bro said, "I don't Squid Spud. I don't care what you call him. Get him down here." And anyway, I came down. So the next year I go to Vancouver. Nobody calls me Squid because they don't know. And it's just Rick or RV. And then I got traded to Toronto. We're playing Minnesota. In the warm up, I'm stretching by the red line, and Dave Burrows is beside me. Craig comes up and says, "Hey, Squid, how you doing?" And then Burrows looked at me, I him, and then it was Squid from there on. It is until right up until today.
Okay, so you get drafted by the Canucks, and you played a little while in Vancouver. That didn't work so well. Why didn't it work for Vancouver for you?
I can't really 100% put my finger on it. I mean, I don't think there's any blame to go around. I mean, I was 20 years old. I was young and learning still. And I think maybe playing in the WHA the year before hurt me a little bit because I was expecting that it was going to be very similar, but it wasn't. It was a lot better. Um, and then we had Harry Neal, the acting GM. Our general manager, Jake Milford, was ill, and he was also the coach. And I don't know, for some reason, we just didn't strive for getting of the year. And then ultimately, the number four pick the year before, and me, number five, Bill Lego and myself get traded together to Toronto.
Okay, now you and Billy get traded for Tiger Williams and Jerry Butler. Tiger was a pretty popular guy in Toronto, and he got dealt away like a lot of other popular players at the time. What was it like, replacing a guy like Tiger? Did you feel some pressure at the beginning?
No, not really. I was worried about just going in and doing what I could do and what I did best, and that's what they expected of us. That's what they said when we come in, that we were going to get every opportunity to play and play with the best players, and they gave us that opportunity. And I didn't feel any pressure following Tiger. I know he was very popular, and there had been some very unpopular moves with Lanny before him, and so on. I knew it wasn't going to be easy, but it's not something I worried about. I worried about me and how I was going to play each and every day.
But a lot of turmoil around the Leafs in those days. That's when Daryl Sittler was getting the C ripped off his sweater, and Roger Nielsen was having all the issues. And uh, it was what was it like at that time? Playing in that turmoil. I mean, you come over from the Canucks, where it seemed like you were an afterthought. Now you're playing a bigger part in Toronto, but now you're part of that turmoil that's happening. What was that like?
It was like Barnum and Bailey's circus, and Harold was the ringleader, and uh, he kind of did what he wanted to
Yeah.
do. He said what he wanted to say, and you know what I mean. Back then, too, the big thing to remember is that he wasn't alone. I mean, the owners controlled the league back then, and they had Al Eagleson in their back pocket, and they made the rules, and we had no say whatsoever. I mean, Al wouldn't negotiate on our behalf. He would go in and negotiate with them on his own and come out and say they don't want to give you this or this, and but they're going to give you this, and so it was all about the owners. They controlled everything.
Well, it seemed that maybe you didn't get the full story from Eagleson too. It seems that later on, when people look back at that, they wonder whether he got the full story from him. But yeah, and your agent Bill Waters, he wrote the forward to the book. Billy, great guy. He You got along with him very well, and it's Billy was a different type of cat. He ended up breaking from Eagleson and going on his own, and of course eventually became a general manager of the Leafs, or assistant GM. And um, how much of a role did Billy play in your life as a player, and getting your head together for the game?
Well, he played a big part. I remember when I was with Al, and Bill worked for Al, and one story in particular, Al used to come around to all the teams during training camp and visit and talk about the PA and what was going on and so on, kind of filling me in. And then, of course, after he would take all his clients on that particular team out for dinner. And I remember we were at a restaurant, and I know it wasn't Sam Simpson, but it was somebody else that worked for Al, came over to me at the table and said, "What's your name?" Like, because Al doesn't know who you are. I'm thinking, okay, hold on a minute. I'm the fifth pick overall in the draft, and he has no idea who the hell I am. And then, of course, when Bill left Al, was shortly after I got to Toronto, and then that was my first thing, was I'm going with Bill because that's who I dealt with all the time. And Al didn't know who the hell I was, so why stay with him? And
Well, I
so
think
Bill was
too.
great,
Yeah,
and yeah,
yeah.
Bill was great. He was a great agent, a great friend, and he tried to do whatever he could to help us young guys.
It seemed to me, if I recall from the book, that maybe your wife Joyce had a little say in you staying with Bill as well. Just yeah,
Well,
yeah.
Joe, you know yourself, they have a say in everything. so
This is true.
and she was very adamant about because she had known Al, obviously, and went down to Al would always give his place to Mike Palmentier's wife, and they would go down there a couple of sometimes at March break and so on, because she was teaching at the time, and so she knew all about Al, and that was she was very instrumental in helping me make that decision, and a lot of other decisions in my life as well.
So now you're with the Leafs, and Daryl Sittler's going through the turmoil there. So they take this. Daryl loses the C, and then well, actually took it off himself, and then eventually they lost it. But and they decided, and Harold Ballard comes and decides that you're going to be his captain. And what was that situation like, and how did that feel? How did you take that news, and what were your thoughts when he told you that you were going to be the captain?
Well, again, it was one of those catch-22 situations. I mean, I was 22 years old. I kind of figured I might need a year or two more in the league to kind of get myself into a position where I could be the captain. And it's kind of ironic because he just came to me and he said, "You're our captain." It wasn't an ask, or it wasn't, like it happens in other places where they sit down with the GM, maybe the owner and the coach, and they ask, and they give you a couple of days to think about it. And no, that was a different situation. It was like, you're the captain. I'm standing there going, I think I'm too young. But at the same time, I'm looking at Harold thinking, but if I don't take it, he's probably going to trade me. And
Right.
so again, another situation where I had to make a tough decision. And yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, it was unbelievable to be the captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs, but I just didn't think I was ready. But I didn't want to leave there either. So I had to make that difficult decision, and I'm glad I did now.
Well, you did a fine job as a captain, and you helped negotiate your team through some tough times, and you were a good liaison between let's face it, not exactly easy to get along with owner, and of course the people that worked for him as well, right? There was a lot of turmoil. That now in the book you intimate that that 80s the least teams of the 80s were probably better than a lot of people gave them credit for, and tell us about what you thought of those teams, and you know about reaching not being able to reach the potential.
Well, I think one of the big things, Joe, I remember sitting down with Wendell one time in an appearance we were doing, and we just happened to grab our food and sit at the same table. I don't know, the blue. I said, "What was it like?" It must have been like crazy in Toronto in '93 or whatever, and '94, '92, '93 when they went to the conference finals. And he said, "Yeah." He said it was. It was incredibly crazy around Toronto, but he said, "You know what?" He said, "We've had better teams in 80, 85, 86, and 86, 87 than we did when we went to the conference final." And I thought he was kind of crazy. And then I went back and looked at the lineups, and I said, "Yeah, we did have more talent." The problem was Harold didn't want to pay for a good general manager that could make good decisions, and they didn't want to pay for a coach who could make good decisions. And therefore, we had a lot of really talented young 18-year-olds that were thrown into the fire. And I blame that 100% on the general manager at the time. And because most of those 18-year-olds, with the exception of Wendell perhaps, were not mentally or physically tough enough to play in the NHL at that point. And they could have used a year or two in junior, or maybe even a half a year in the American League to get ready. And I think a lot of them would have had longer careers. You talk about Jim Benning, Gary Nyland, Boimstruck, Ally Frady. He's always said he would have been the type of defenseman he ultimately became a lot earlier if he had gone back to Belleville for 2 more years. So a lot of mistakes were made, and those guys had careers and didn't perform up to what they thought they were going to be able to. The management, that is, uh, in those formative early years.
So the Jerry McNamara was the general manager through most of that period. What are some of the moves that he made that you look back and go, come on, like what were you thinking?
Well, he didn't make that many moves. I don't know whether he was didn't want to get his hand on the trigger or whatever you want to call it, but I think the biggest mistakes he made, like I said, was bringing these
Bring up
young
the young
guys
guys.
in. And
Yeah.
I remember in the playoffs one year, like Mirko Freecher or Inachek came over, Peter's younger brother, and they got him
Hmm.
out of Czechoslovakia and everything. And he was supposed to be this big star, and uh, he played for a little bit, didn't do very well, so he was kind of sitting out. And we got into the playoffs. We're playing Game Seven in Detroit in the second round of the playoffs, and they take out a regular and they put him into the lineup. And I'm pretty sure that was orchestrated from the top, from Mr. McNamara, who brought him over and wanted to try and prove something. And of course, it flopped because he was terrible that night, and we ended up losing Game Seven.
So that was I believe that was a series you guys were up 3-1, wasn't it, against Detroit,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then losing in Game Seven. So that was a few mistakes there. But okay, so now so Dan Maloney is your head coach, and you and Dan had a couple of run-ins, and then you had the situation where you lost a seat. Tell us about losing that captaincy, what it was like, what it meant to you at the time.
Well, it was a tough situation. I think it was a tough situation for everybody. It was a tough situation for Dan, um, and myself. But I think at the end of the day, I don't believe that. How do they put it? That the punishment fitted the crime. Um, I made a mistake, and I owned up to that mistake, and that's on me. I mean, that's not on anybody else. I just thought it was a harsh decision. It was made rather quickly, as opposed to thinking things out, and making the proper decision. However, it didn't change the way I played for the Toronto Maple Leafs, or how I felt. I still felt like I was a big part of the team and one of the leaders, and that wasn't going to change.
So what was it like, Rick? Okay, so you've lost the captaincy, but you're still playing great. What was it like first time you hit that 50 goal mark? What was it like to be a Toronto Maple Leaf, that the first Maple Leaf to hit the 50 goal mark? What was that like?
Well, I mean, it was unbelievable, obviously, but I didn't know. I had no idea that nobody had scored 50 goals before, for the Toronto Maple Leafs. When you look at all the great players they had over the years, you just figure somebody did it. And then you find out later, when I got to about 45, the press uh, told me that no one had it. I thought that was very strange. And then ultimately, up and I mean, yeah, it was a phenomenal night, and a great thing to achieve. I think the best part about that whole thing was Frank Mahavas had the record at 48, and when I got to 49, down the next day, got pictures taken with me and congratulated me and everything. And I thought that was uh, incredible that Frank Mahavas would come down and do that, and I was very grateful for what he did.
Yeah, Frank, classy act, no question about that. So that was a great thing for him to come down and celebrate that 49th with you, and then you get 50, and then you get like 50, 50 again, and then you get 50 again, three years back to back to back. Did you start thinking that perhaps you're going to be doing this for forever?
Well, you hope,
Yeah.
the hope that nothing's going to change, but at the same time, it's, um, you kind of look at it and you go, is there any chance that I could continue to do this every year? I'm not sure it is. And, you know, I never really set goals. I didn't say, okay, this year I'm going to score 50 again or anything like that. It was a process, and it was every single day you had to be the best you could be, on or off the ice, and that's what I tried to do. Every practice, every game, I tried to be the best player and tried to lead by example, and hope that it would happen again. But then again, I mean, I think after that, I don't. I think I went the next 5 years in a row with 30 plus and 43 the one year in Chicago. So I just. I thought that was pretty good. Obviously the Leafs didn't think 35 or 38 or whatever was good enough anymore. And off I get traded to Chicago, and the rest is history.
Well, Brad Smith is a big is a regular viewer of the show. We've had him on the show before as well. He told me he wanted me to ask you about Rodeo Drive in Beverly Hills on a day off, and then to the Black Whale for dinner. He said, ask Rick about that." I don't know if it's something you can talk about or not. I I always worry when guys say stuff like that, right?
Well, I think it was. I do remember the Black Whale, and we went there for dinner the one night, and I think it was one of those nights where I think everything got a little bit kind of crazy, a little bit out of hand. We were in LA for uh, I think 4 extra days before we played, and I think that night got a little bit crazy. We got a little bit crazier than we should have, and nothing happened. But nonetheless, I think the next day we all woke up feeling pretty bad.
Little hungover, right? A little messed up.
Yeah.
So okay, well, let's talk about Chicago. You go to Chicago, and you know there is some success, but there then Mike Keenan comes in, and it's funny in your book you mentioned that Keenan came in and took the ashtrays out of the dressing room. When you think about that, that's the times are the times they have changed, Rick. That's for sure.
Yeah, there's no question, and but there was no ashtrays in the room. I think Mike threw that in there to try and sensationalize things, but it was. But what he did do is he came in and he built a whole new fitness area and everything for us and everything. So, because to him, fitness was big at the time, and it was starting to become a little bit larger in the National Hockey League in general. So he installed all that, and I think it was the best thing. Mike and I didn't really hit it off that well. I don't know, for some reason. I think that was his tactic when he came into a new team, was to attack the best players and try to push them and hope that they buy into what he's selling, or he gets rid of them. And I think that kind of is what happened with me. And from the beginning, Mike just he didn't play me. I mean, I played on the power play, stood in front of the net, got cross checked in front of the net, and banged around like a ball in a pinball machine, and then off the ice. And then the next power play, and he wouldn't even call my name. He'd come up and with his foot, he gently kicked me in the rear end and basically letting me know that, okay, it's your turn to go and get batted around in front of the net.
Right. So I guess if you were a doctor, you'd say his bedside manner wasn't very good, right?
No, no, no,
Iron Mike.
definitely not.
Okay, so then it's playing for Mike is kind of something that's difficult for a lot of guys to do. You end up in Buffalo, and then you got that the rash of injuries. Pardon the pun. It starts piling up for you.
Yeah, it was kind of unfortunate because I got to Buffalo. Well, the unfortunate part about it was the trade. I got traded the day after Christmas. My in laws were in town. We had a 2 year old. My wife was pregnant, and we had to put the house up for sale, get the movers in, which she had to do all by herself. And I had to catch a flight that afternoon at 1 o'clock on Boxing Day, and I was supposed to play in Buffalo that night for the Sabres, but there was a snowstorm. I didn't get out until I think I got in there about 9:30 or so, and made it to the game before it ended. But I didn't see my family until February 4th, and that was very difficult. But when I got there, things just clicked right away. Everything was going really, really good right away. And then all of a sudden, the injuries, the shoulder, the neck, several other things happened, and kind of slowed me down a little bit. But I thought my last year I had recovered really well. I felt good, and but I got off to a slow start, and which was kind of common for me, I guess, in most of my NHL years. And John Muckler fired Rick Dudley, took over behind the bench, and I found myself in the press box. So that was pretty much the beginning of the end.
Well, and the situation with John that went back to the WHA days, didn't it? Like with the old Oilers and yeah.
Well, I mean, I'd like to give him the benefit of the doubt and think that perhaps it didn't. But I remember back in the WHA days, we were playing the Edmonton Oilers, and Glenn Sather's the coach, and John Muckler's the assistant. And Glenn was famous for chirping at players on other teams, which I always hated. I just didn't think it was a place for a coach to do anything like that. Unless you had the equipment on and you were going to be able to go out there and back up what you're saying, then keep your mouth shut. But he would yap at the players and me in particular, and I'd always yap back at him. And then Muckler would have something to say, and John, and um, yeah, I don't know if that played into it or not. I'd like to think that perhaps as a professional coach that John wouldn't bring that into the equation, but I have a feeling that perhaps that did play a little bit into it, unfortunately.
Now, yeah, the one of the things that happened in Buffalo that was one of the freaky things that like everybody's stomach turned. Of course, I'm talking about the night that Clint Malarchuk got cut in the neck, and you were there. What was that? Tell us about that situation. What was it like being there?
Um, you know what? It's very, very difficult to describe. Is it surreal or is it like frightening? I think it's a little bit of everything. I mean, you see your teammate, and I mean, literally, uh, blood is everywhere. And I mean, there is a circle like much bigger than a manhole cover that is probably a half an inch or so thick. And he's taken by our trainer, Jim Pizzatelli, who probably saved his life by not waiting for a stretcher or anything. And they got him to the hospital, and of course, he was okay. But after that, we're sitting in the dressing room for about an hour, not knowing what the heck's going on. Is our goalie, our teammate, is he alive? Is he okay? Is he, what's happening? And we had to sit there for, an hour, or maybe even close to an hour and a half to finally hear that he's okay and he's gonna be okay. That was the toughest part of all of it.
I remember that night, scary night. It was I was
Oh,
working
it
that night,
was.
and it was just yeah, and it was and like you said, like at the in the book, like a lot of people thought, man, I think he might die. It's just so
Mm.
much blood loss, and the trainer did an amazing job, and yeah, thank God he was trained enough to be able to take care of that situation. So uh, now, so you got to retire at 33, but you felt you had some hockey left in you, but 33 and the injuries and just seemed to add up, and it was time to try on some try on a new gig as an assistant coach with the Canucks. But that led to a head coaching job.
Yeah, I guess I got pretty lucky. Not many guys get to leave the game as a player and then get right into something that they think they can do and something that they enjoy. The year in Hamilton kind of helped catapult that, and I ended up becoming the first head coach of the South Carolina Stingrays in Charleston, South Carolina. It was owned by Frank Milne, Marcel Dion. I forget the other gentleman's name. He was a principal owner, but he was the one kind of running the show down there, and he did a lot of crazy things. But it ended up getting like 8 or 9 thousand people into the building on a nightly basis, and it was great for me. It taught me a lot. I learned a lot about coaching. The first thing I did before I got into coaching full time was I bought books on sports psychology and psychology in general and read them. And I went into it realizing that probably the most important thing that I'm going to do as a coach is I got to communicate the proper way with the players and get things across to them in communicating. And I think that was probably my biggest strength as a coach was my communication and being able to, change things on the fly or as the game's going on or change power plays between games, all kinds of sort of different things. But I think my biggest asset was my communication skills.
Well, the South Carolina Stingrays expansion franchise, and within 3 years, you get them to the ECHL championship and a title. I would say that's a pretty good accomplishment.
Well, yeah, I think if you look at the whole, I was there 5 years, and That year, we actually became the first team ever to win the regular season and the playoffs in the ECHL, and it was a blast. I loved it down there. The family loved it in Charleston, South Carolina. I had a lot of really good players there. I had a lot of we had good players that had good skill, but I think the biggest thing we had was we had character, and that was one of the things that I always looked at before we signed anybody or brought anybody in was the character, and how are they going to fit into our team and with the rest of the guys, and what can they bring to us, and that was another thing I think that I realized real early, and I was able to be able to pull off those things and bring in the right people and then make the right trades at the right time, and that led us to the championship. And then a couple more years, and then I wanted to stay there. I wanted to sign a 10-year deal with the owner, and it was different ownership at the time, Mr. Zucker, and he thought that it was too much money, and in fact, it was like 45,000 less than what two of the coaches in the league were making in the first year of their contracts. But nonetheless, he just felt it was too much money, and uh, unfortunately, I gave up my last year in the ECHL and went to St. John, which was Calgary's farm team in the American League at the time, and uh, that was a tough move because I know my boys really loved it in Charleston. They had good friends there, and well, actually, I loved it there too. The weather was great, and my wife and I loved it there.
The stint with the Flames. I mean, it was. I know that you in the book you talk about you try to get them to try to convince them it'd be a good idea to keep a guy named Marty St. Louis, and they ignored that advice.
Yeah, it was kind of well, it was a year that they after my second year, and they had fired Al Coates and Polano, who was the assistant GM, and they flew us all out. Tom Watt was player development, and whoever the scouts, and Lanny was there because he was working for the Flames at the time. So they flew us all out to Calgary and meetings with the president and everything. And as soon as I walked in, they had a like on the wall, and it had Marty's name right near the bottom, and it had Bill Lindsay like third in depth chart. And when it came up to talking about that, I just said, like, why is Marty way at the bottom? And we got a guy like Bill Lindsay, who I think at the time was early 30s, making well over and playing on the fourth line. And I thought, you have a chance to sign Marty for 500,000 and on a one year deal. Why not do it? He's a great player. And Todd, or sorry, Todd Button, Craig's brother, who was a scout for the Flames at the time, kept arguing with me. No, he can't play in the NHL. He's too small. All this stuff. Anyway, finally, Lanny speaks up and he says, "Well, like we have Bill Lindsay up there for leadership." And I said, "Okay, we got Jerome McGinley, several other guys around the same age, 25, 26, that are kind of coming in their own." I said, "Without him, do we have enough leadership with those guys?" And Lanny thought for a while and he said, "I think you might be right." He said, "We might have enough with those guys." And but lo and behold, they let Marty go. Well, I think Craig or Al Coates had signed him to that contract, but then when Craig came in, he released him from that contract somehow, and he ended up in Tampa. And well, now he's in the Hall of Fame. So how did that work
Yeah.
out?
Stanley Cup, Hart Trophy worked out okay. I mean,
Yeah,
Rick, you had an eye for talent there, my friend. So, what can I say? So, you end up the Craig Button thing didn't work out. I know you guys clashed, and he had trouble there, and didn't work out. So now we go to the Mississauga Ice Dogs, and I think Don Shurry running the team. Did you start to feel like maybe you could relate to Dan Maloney and Jerry McNamara and all the people that worked for Harold back in the day? Because it seemed to me that Don did have his finger on that team a little bit more than most owners would.
Yeah, and they had already been through several coaches already early in their franchise, and I actually my agent at the time for coaching was Trevor Whiffen, who was Don's lawyer, and he became the general manager, and which probably was a mistake. And that, with all due respect to Trevor, he just wasn't ready to be a general manager. And then he became the governor of the London Knights, which I think he still is, which is a great position for him. He does a great job with them.
Yeah.
Um, but it was kind of turning him down both times because I wasn't sure whether I wanted to get involved with the team run by Don Cherry, and I knew what was going on and how many coaches they had already gone through. And then a third time, I said, "Look, you put in the contract that I got to be involved in all uh, things hockey related, as far as draft, trades, everything." And they finally did, and so I said, "Okay, I'll do it." So I signed a 2-year deal, and of course, we had a horrible team, and then 15 games in, Jason Spezza, our best player, demands a trade. So we had to trade him. We got a horrible return for him, which I think there was two teams interested. I went and watched both clubs play, Sarnia and Windsor, and I recommended the trade from Sarnia because I thought it was much better. The three guys we were getting instead of four were going to turn us into a better team right away. We ended up doing the deal with Windsor, which was the deal. But when I left the meeting at the Hershey Center in Mississauga that day, we were making the deal with Sarnia. All of a sudden, it changed overnight. It committed today, and the trade had been made with Windsor, and that wasn't very good. And then Don got involved, started telling me I need to play this guy, and then he started leaving messages after games. He'd watch the game and probably have a few pops and wait till he knew I was gone from my office, and then phone the leave a message. I'd come in at 7 or 8 in the morning to go over film, and I'd have to listen to his crazy messages, and
So
then
that
they weren't good.
right, right. I can imagine. I can imagine. So that situation ended, and probably because of all that stuff, that maybe kind of put a real blemish on what could have been like, if you look back, a pretty successful coaching career, except for that last stop, right? Have you had thoughts about trying to get back into the game in that capacity at all?
Yeah, well, I'd love to. I mean, I think I still have it in me, and I mean, after that year, I applied for assistant jobs, head jobs in all the leagues, the ECHL, the American League, everywhere. Probably 25 to 30 resumes a year I sent out for about 5 or 6 years after that year, and I never ever got an interview. Period. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's far from me to say whether Don had a play in that or not, but it's just kind of ironic that I set a record that'll probably never ever be broken. That's one record I'll probably have for the rest of my life and forever is only 3 wins in the OHL, and I don't think anybody's going to break that anytime soon.
No.
Um, but it's ironic that after that year, I don't get another shot at coaching.
Yeah. And it's sometimes, and after that, Rick, we hit the situation where the alcoholism is involved, and I read your book and I can relate to an awful lot of it, including the issues with alcoholism, which I mentioned when we were talking the other day. I've been sober now almost 29 years, and it's like it's a life changing situation for me, and I'm really, when I look back at the things that happened in my life that sort of led in that direction and led me to where I had to go to hit my bottom, those are kind of blessings in disguise. Do you feel the same way that the things that had to happen to you to get to where you are today?
Yeah, I think so. I think you have to reach those points sometime. Like first time around, it was a one night thing that happened that wasn't a very good thing, and that led me to quitting on my own at 35, and then again when it started when I was almost 50. Um, that went downhill pretty quick. That was right shortly after that the DUI thing happened, and it was in the media every day, and that was 2.5, 2 years and 4 months of the worst 2 years and 4 months of my life, and believe me, it got probably to the point where, like you say, you pretty much hit rock bottom, and you say, I can't do it anymore. And I went away and got help, and lo and behold, 9 years later, I'm feeling about as good as I've ever felt in my entire life. So I'm happy. I'm really comfortable.
Yeah, the other and one of the other commonalities we have is like you and Joyce have been married 38 years. Penny Claire and I have been married 38 years. And uh, does Joyce know about the $5 yet? It's in the book.
No, probably not.
Okay.
Probably never will. Well, yeah, she probably will when she reads the
Yeah,
book.
yeah. But you have to make her read it though. You have to make her read it. So I just want
She'll
to
read
talk
it.
about but yeah, yeah. I want to talk a little bit about the Leafs today because they made a lot of off-season changes. Travis Boyd, Joe Thornton, Jimmy Vesey, Joey Anderson, Wayne Simmons on defense. T.J. Brody, Zach Bogosian. Do you like the additions?
Yeah, I think they've kind of given themselves a little bit of depth and brought in some veterans that have been there. Thornton and Bergosian won the cup last year. Brody's been a great defenseman in Calgary. They brought in Simmons, a hard nosed guy, played in Philly and had some success there. But uh, the guys they brought in, I think, are going to help. They're not going to be the ones that are going to drive the bus because that's the young guys are going to have to take control. The so-called top six forwards, Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Tavares, and that group are going to have to take control and kind of take this team to the next level. But I think those veterans are going to be able to help a little bit. Of course, Brody and Bogosian right away make their defense probably 30-40% better than it was last year. And but until
Hmm.
all five players on the ice buy into the idea that they got to all come back and play real good, solid, tough defense in their own zone, are they going to get over that hump?
In the new alignment with the All Canadian division, um, how do you like the Leafs' chances in a division like that?
Um, well, anything can happen. I mean, I think if you look at every single team, with the exception of probably Vancouver, they all improved themselves this year. Although, Calgary did lose a couple of guys, but they got Markstrom from Vancouver. They got Tanev from Vancouver. So I mean that obviously made them better, even though they lost Brody. Uh, I don't know. It's very, very difficult to say. All the other teams, Ottawa, Montreal, Ottawa, probably not for this year, but down the road with their draft picks and everything, I think they made themselves a lot better. Um, so it's really difficult to say until they get on the ice and start playing because, like I said, you can do whatever you want, but unless everybody buys into the whole concept of playing good team defense, um, yeah, this team is it's going to have good regular seasons regardless, but it's playoff time where that has to kind of sink in and everybody has to buy in.
Okay, Rick, tell us about your new hobby and your horse. You gotta believe your harness horse.
Well, yeah, it's kind of fun. I grew up in PEI and spent a lot of time at the track. And oh, what a great picture!
That's you training.
almost looked like I, almost looked like I could do that for a living, eh? But
Yeah, yeah.
um, so I spent a lot of time at the racetrack and the harness track, and then got involved with the stable here that's owned by Anthony McDonald from PEI, and a little bit of a piece of this guy here, and we named it "You Got a Belief," and hopefully it's an Ohio bred yearling, so it's not going to race until well maybe next summer. I'm not sure, and let's just hope that everything works out and this horse does well.
Yeah, Coast is one of the sponsors of the show, and my brother's got some harness horses. His Taj Me All Over, Mount Sterling Mafia, Grey Cup, Outlaw Fireball. We love the harness racing thing. and it's in the family. So, Rick, I just want to say, look, you're the first Leaf to hit the 50 goal mark. You did it three times. You got the club record with 54 goals. You're one of only 18 players to win this, wear the C for the Maple Leafs. I think you deserve to have that number 22 raised to the rafters, my friend. And I want you to know that we're all for that happening. Once again, we want to let the folks know about the book, Catch 22. My Battles in Hockey and Life, the untold story of a Toronto Maple Leafs legend, Rick Vaive, with Scott Morrison. Order it now. You might be able to get it before Christmas if you order it right now. Uh, and it's a must read for any Leaf fan or any hockey fan for that matter. There's some great stories in there. There's a lot to take in, and it's a great read, Rick. And I appreciate you being on the show today. I just want to say, as a guest on Joe Tilley Sports, we got a foursome at Club Link for you. We're all in it together, and we'll have some more sports when we come back. Thanks again, Rick.
All right, beautiful. I can't wait to get out on the golf course.
Promotional consideration provided by Clublink. Clublink. One membership, more golf. Do you realize that 80% of golfers enjoy country music?
Really?
No, but 100% of golfers enjoy timely play. And that means being ready when it's your turn. Bring enough clubs to make a shot when you go to a ball that's away from your bag. Leave your clubs in an advanced position so when you move on, you're not going backwards. Remember, we're all in this together. Addiction Rehab Toronto, Toronto's #1 alcohol and drug treatment center, saving lives, reuniting families. The only treatment center in the province to offer medical detox, treatment, sober living, and lifetime aftercare all in one place. Our unique and specialized programs are designed to equip our clients with the tools to successfully lead a life of dignity, respect, and purpose. Let us help save your life or your loved one's life. Call today for more information or to facilitate an intervention. 1-855-787-2424 or visit addictionrehabtoronto.ca. COSA, Central Ontario Standardbred Association, providing a united voice for harness horse people racing at Ontario tracks. Check out your benefits today at cosaonline.com. Also, check out COSA TV on Facebook and YouTube for all the latest harness news and live action updates. Live racing year-round, and go to freescratch.ca for your chance to win a new fabulous prize every day with COSA.
Use a Twitter question rather than our analytics segment. And this comes from Angry Leaf Fan. Are the Leafs in better shape playing in the All-Canadian division than they would have been in the Atlantic division? Yes, Angry Leafs Fan. They won't have to deal with the Stanley Cup champs from Tampa and their old nemesis from Boston. As a matter of fact, I think the Leafs are going to finish first in the All-Canadian division. So, yes, it definitely is a good thing. Now it's time for my COSA Swiss pick of the week. Last week, I took B2B in the opening leg of the valedictory series for 3-year-old Cole Pacers. Unfortunately, he got stuck in the pocket and couldn't get out, but Captain Video with Sylvain Filion in the buggy wasn't about to give up that lead. B2B had to settle for a strong second. Richard Moreau, the trainer of Captain Video. My record is now one second, one third, and a fourth. This week we're going to go for the win. That's Wednesday night's card at Mohawk. I'm going with the number 10 horse in the 7th race, Sam's a Champ. He was second last time out after dropping down in class. I think he'll be a champ in this one. Louis-Philippe Roy drives. And this will be the last card until probably at least the 23rd of January when we hopefully open things up here in Ontario because of COVID. Visit Costa TV on Facebook for the latest harness news, live action updates, and you'll get an update on when they're going to race again. And go to freescratch.ca for your chance to win a fabulous new prize every day. Okay, Toronto Raptors took care of some business this week. They signed OG Anunoby to a 4-year deal worth $18 million a season. The 23-year-old forward averaged about 11 points and 5 rebounds over 69 games last season. He's improved steadily since being drafted out of Indiana. He's a solid defender. Remember that shot he made against the Celtics? The Raps will get some good value in this deal. He's going to be a star defender for years to come. Meanwhile, Norm Powell played Santa Claus, purchasing gifts for some 30 Toronto families to help lift their spirits over the Christmas season. Didn't take long for the Brooklyn Nets to make believers out of some skeptics. Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant were a deadly duo in that romp over the Warriors. The Raptors are going to have a good season, folks, better than most would expect, but I don't think they're going to get past the Nets. I like the Nets against the Lakers in the NBA final, with the Lakers winning it all in 7 games. So there you go. Now you can take that to the bank. Okay, get ready for the third installment of Canelo versus Triple G. Gennady Golovkin, the best thing to come out of Kazakhstan since Borat and his daughter. Triple G did his part by demolishing a previously unbeaten Kamil Jerebeda in 7 rounds, dropping him 4 times, improving to 41-1-1 with 36 knockouts. Still looks great at 38. Triple G can bang, folks. Meanwhile, Canelo won a 12-round unanimous decision against Callum Smith, who also went into the bout undefeated. Solid win by Alvarez, who's 54-1-2. Canelo is only 30, but it's a hard 30. He's been fighting pro since he was 15 years old. I honestly thought Triple G won the first fight between the two fighters. The second was pretty close. Canelo got the nod in that one. I like Golovkin to take the third bout whenever that happens. Both these guys, along with Errol Spence, Terrence Crawford, are all in the top pound-for-pound conversation. A couple weeks ago in the NFL season, the Buffalo Bills have wrapped up the division title for the first time in 25 years, and the Patriots are out. Can't say I'm disappointed about that. Josh Allen will get some MVP consideration, but nobody's going to beat out Patrick Mahomes. In what I expect to be a Super Bowl preview, the Chiefs knocked off the Saints in the return of Drew Brees. That was a great game between 2 championship caliber teams. A couple of stunners. The Steelers lose to the Bengals, who had 2 wins heading in, thanks to a great game by Ryan Finley. Might cost Pittsburgh the number 2 seed. They've now lost 3 in a row. And the Jets get that first W, which might cost them a shot at Trevor Lawrence. And you know what? That's too bad. A reminder to check out Joe Tilley Sports on YouTube. You don't want to miss it, folks. All the latest stuff there. We close with a look at the folks who make this show possible. These are all friends, trusted business associates, and all-around great folks. I highly recommend them all. Once again, a thank you to Rick Vaive. Order Catch 22 today. And thank you for watching the show. We'll see you next week. The Joe Tilley Show is available on the Barn Burner Network on Zingo TV. Download both the Barn Burner and Zingo TV apps from their respective iOS and Android app stores. Both apps are free. Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku, and Roku sticks.
Get Aldo at Remax Crossroads. Do you want to buy or sell a home? Could 31 years of real estate experience help you? Why not speak to an amazing team that loves to overpromise and overdeliver? Call 416-GET-ALDO or visit www.getaldo.com to find out what next-level real estate looks like. RS Demolition and Excavation has extensive experience with complete teardowns and interior strip-outs. Looking to build a custom home? RS Excavating Services has the experience you need to build in established neighborhoods. For the highest level of quality and cost-efficient results, we provide innovative demolition solutions completed on time and on budget while ensuring our number one priority, safety. Call 647-852-3006 for an estimate or visit rsdemolition.ca. Brian Gribben Insurance Planning, helping you solidify your financial future.
At BGIP, what we do that's unique in the marketplace is we show people how to spend and enjoy their money in their early years of retirement without the fear of running out. Also, we're able to do this without you having to change financial advisors. Please look us up at bgip.ca today, and let's book a 30-minute phone call to see how we can bring value to you and your family in your planning.
Call Brian today for all your retirement needs. We did. 905-686-5678. The Painting Pros. Want to freshen up a single room, change the appearance of your entire home, update the look of an older property, or completely transform your building? Go with the pros. Our fully insured team is skilled in surface preparation, selection of the proper finishes, as well as the application of the selected paint coatings. The perfect finish for your home or business. Call the Painting Pros, 289-830-2331, or visit thepaintingpros.ca.